Hey everyone, welcome back to the Weekly Awakening Podcast. This is your host, Cosmic Colleen, back with episode 286. The lunar eclipse in Virgo, 6:37 a.m. East Coast time this past Tuesday came through, and I am sorry I didn't come through. I didn't get this podcast out sooner than the lunar eclipse like I had hoped and like I had said on the last episode, but this Virgo lunar eclipse really took me out. For those of you who don't know, but a lot of you do, I have a natal, for those of you who don't know, is like in my birth chart, Virgo moon and rising, and a natal Mars in Pisces, and Mars had just entered at the time of the eclipse Pisces and conjunct my Mars. So I am finishing out a lot of responsibilities that had taken over when Saturn first entered my 7th house with my mother, family, kids, and all of these things suddenly came on that I now have to take care of to tie up sort of these loose ends for my mother's life as she kind of transitions into a new era. That's not really a fun era, getting old, shit. But nevertheless, in some health issues, I got sick, my kids, I didn't have any energy. It was almost like, and I'll talk about it on this episode for my Mercury ruled placements, my life was just everywhere and I was grabbing at straws. And I was tired, but I couldn't stop. And so it's still feeling like that a little bit. So again, I apologize. I always feel like, I let someone down. I let you guys down if I don't put it out there before. But I know I don't. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about Venus entering Aries this Friday. It feels like Venus wasn't in Pisces for very long, not as long as I would have liked. It may be because last year she retrograded in Pisces. So she was there for a very long time compared to how she is this year. And I was like, damn, when I was like looking at the astrology ahead, and I was like, this week already, Venus, she enters Aries? I was not prepared for that. I was like, where is the time going? So I don't love it. We're going from Venus at her best in Pisces to Venus in Aries, where she's not at her best. So it's almost going from like first to worst, guys. There's is a lot of good things, but Venus is a hot planet and it gets even more heated in the opposition to her, which is Mars. So as I was getting ready to sit down and record this podcast, though, I saw Britney Spears was arrested for a DUI. And so, of course, I have gone to her chart before, but I'm like, let me go back right now to her chart. That's like the first thing I did. I actually didn't even see it was for a DUI. I saw she was arrested, and I was like, I thought she had something in Aries, but she's a Libra rising. I was like, let me go right to her chart right now and see where this showed up. So she has a 12th house Virgo with a natal Mars in Virgo in the 12th house. And these eclipses currently, because we're still in this eclipse energy, we're bouncing back and forth between her 12th house and her 6th house. One of the things that the 12th house stands for is self-imprisonment. The 12th and the 6th house are two of the hardest houses in your birth chart, actually. It tends to not bring about the best energy. It's the energy where the things that we need to learn from, the hidden things, the health things, the mental health crisis, like sort of the crisis in our life, or the energy that seems to take off in not the best ways or shows up, happens between those two houses. So having a Mars there adds to the arrest and even like just right away seeing her life played out. With Mars there adds to the rest, but she also has a 3rd house Mercury-Mars conjunction squaring her natal Mars. So though she has a Mercury Sun conjunction in the 3rd house. She's a Sagittarius in the 3rd house. She has a Mercury in Sagittarius, and those two planets are squared, which is friction, her 12th house with a Mars in Virgo. So that square alone shows potentially, and a big potential, for someone who suffers from a lot of mental illness, drug abuse. You also see how there's been issues with her siblings as well as her parents. And 12th house is imprisonment, your own imprisonment, but also your hidden enemies. And you see how her family, her siblings became her hidden enemies and like this fight for control. And I feel like having a Mercury not working at its best in the 3rd house of the mind and communication, and then a Mars square in Virgo, which is stronger, beating down. You can see how how her mental health has played out, but how it's really hard for her to gain control, and how often other people control her and take her over. So that's all be hopeful, though. I hope this leads. Oh, so yeah, she got DUI. I said that. I looked back. I hope it leads to her sobriety. I feel for Britney. I feel for all the Disney stars, especially the ones that were Disney stars rising in the 80s and 90s, as we see Hollywood crumble. It just was like so much, fucked up shit for them. So hopefully, then there's always hope, especially for the mutable placements, that this, again, leads her to a much better mental health place. Well, damn, hasn't the Saturn-Neptune conjunction also in the sign of Aries really kicked off with a bang? Unfortunately, history repeats, and it wasn't just me, but the stars showed us in what way over these last years, and all of the astrologers, all the ancient astrologers who actually study the history of this, not just the bullshit people on Instagram and TikTok who just copy someone else's work and then just put a picture of them drinking a smoothie behind it and then writing, oh, this energy, blah, blah, blah. Literally, like go to the astrology podcast. They do all the history, and those two have spent years and hours really going through the history of astrology. So go listen to them. But a lot of the things that they have brought up that I learned for them was all the different times, like, these planets entered Aries and the wars that broke off. So we are really seeing it, guys. We are in revolutionary times right now. So buckle up, my friends. Like I say, spread the love, give the love, but this shit's not coming down. We're in like a brand new, and especially with Aries season, a brand new beginning that has been tearing down for 6 years, but this is revolutionary times. I want to share some Saturn, Neptune, and Aries and how it showed up for people in my life and people I know. And then we will get into talking about the Virgo eclipse. And then we be done with this episode. So I have a dear friend who is an Aries sun and Mercury in her 12th house with a squared Neptune and Capricorn in the 9th house. And so she really began this Neptune. She actually began her own Neptune square. So a square to Neptune now, currently to her natal Neptune, with Neptune and Aries. So it kicked off with a bang for her. She just had a baby about 4 months ago, and she's getting ready to go back to work. So her and her husband decided last minute, literally the week that Neptune and Saturn conjunct in Aries, they decided to do a getaway somewhere warm before she goes back to work. And this was a week before last Friday. And they're Irish, so they are used to going all over the world and traveling, and they're European, and so they traveled all over America. So to them, they decided to go to Abu Dhabi, where his family lives. And to them, that's like, it's like nothing really, because they're world travelers. So like I said, they left this past Friday night on a red eye and woke up in Egypt, because the bombing began in the Middle East. So they never made it to Abu Dhabi. So that is the most, all the energy that's happening in Aries now, plus Mercury retrograde. Here's the great thing about them, though. They both, I'm sure, had some panics, and they're coming home finally. It took a week for them to get a flight out. Thank God. Let's all pray that they get home safely, which they are. But they made the best of it. They were like, instead of sitting there panicking, and again, internally, I'm sure there was some panic, but they were like, let's go see the pyramids. Let's go meet the people of Egypt. Let's go talk to people. And she had like great stories of people really nice. And I said, that's one for the baby book. So that is definitely some energy, some of the energy of how this showed up in someone's life. We can see it all coming right now. And then last Friday, I decided last minute, had to go to Jersey to do dinner in Chinatown and Philly, and they literally have the best Asian food I've ever had. It's all random places. Every time I go, it's like I have to drive through Philly, and I'm like, let's go to Chinatown and just park, and we find a random place and walk in and eat, and it's always a 10 out of 10. I'm not joking. This place was called Jungnan, I think it was called. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it was incredible. So afterwards, I was like, that's just cruise through the city to get onto the highway to go home, because see the action of Philly. I love Philly. Philly's just a really interesting energy. So as we're waiting, going through, I guess it's Chestnut Street or Center City somewhere, we see this Tesla up ahead, and this woman's out, and we actually think she is fighting, which later we realize I think someone in the car behind her was yelling. And as we're going up, we pull up kind of next to her at the next light, only to realize that she's making TikTok videos at each light, gets up, opens up her car door, sets up her camera, blasts her music, and just starts shaking her ass on camera. She's lucky she did not get run over, though. This is Philly. Philly's not polite that's going to laugh and let you do it. Philly's like, get the fuck out of our way. We don't have time for this shit. And that's what happened at the light before. Someone was yelling. She did it again. And she was still going when the light turned green. Luckily, we could go around her, but everyone else was just like laying on their horn, yelling, we were gone. I was like, oh my God, look at this Aries energy right now. It is very, very on fire and new and beginning. So now let's get into the astrology. This energy is taking action. This is Aries energy is talking about is taking action with emotions and kind of the cocky kind a little bit, which Aries we love about y'all. You guys are the cockiest sign, but it also gets you far in a lot of ways. So personally though, it seems chaotic, but Saturn is beginning this transit where we need you to calm down your emotions a little bit. We need you to bring in some more grounded energy. This is for my cardinal placements right now. We need you to slow your roll, stop making risky and quick decisions, and play the tape through. This is happening so you could see your defects. So I'm saying some of this chaotic energy, though, for some of my Aries, you guys, actually, this might be the first time that you are feeling settled, you're feeling calm, you're feeling like you're getting your life in order. I think the people with early Aries are having a harder time because these planets just entered Aries, where Aries that are at the end of the season, you're not getting your energy yet. You're not at the hard part yet. And I don't want to wish hard parts on you, but just more tougher, decisions. But I think there's a lot of Aries that are actually like, wow, I feel grounded. I feel solid right now. I'm really getting my shit together. This is a good time for peace. This is a good time for energy. But like I said, my Aries that are in like the first week, the first day, the first 2 days, it's going to feel a little more chaotic, you could say. So bring in some of that energy. Now, before we get to the Virgo eclipse, I want to say one more thing with Venus this Friday, or a few more things, I guess I should say. Venus this Friday entering the pact with Neptune and Saturn. So my cardinal placements, this is amplifying the energy that is happening for you right now, but we are adding Venus ruled things to the mix, which is our love language, friendship, beauty, sex, but like the intimate sex, the like emotional connection sex. Mars is more like the animalistic sex. Self-love, confidence, joy, pleasure. Venus is a very hot planet, and she is now in her opposition. Mars is sign of Aries, adding more steam to the fire. This is a time where love affairs, and I don't just mean the hidden, troubling kind, but just quick, both people could be single too. It's just like one of those love affairs where it's just quick and intense attachments can happen during this transit. This can be a time where you quickly get real with someone, like what are your motives, what are your intentions with me or the situation. This is a get real transit. This is a time to speak the truth, but it may be hard. With Saturn and Neptune, it can be hard to speak your truth, but you want to so badly. And you could also be at a loss for words here. Like your words are blocked a little bit with the communication, especially Saturn or Neptune, or maybe your words aren't getting across clearly, or maybe there's just some avoidance there. Some self-doubt illusions may come, but where you're being extra hard on yourself or comparing yourself to others. So remember that there are going to be the self-doubt illusions, and try not to compare yourself, but it is going to come up. So try to practice, though, catching yourself in the rabbit hole thoughts before you go down too far. Again, this is a transit where the cardinal placements will have to really put up or shut up about how you feel with yourself, but in a very Aries way. Kind of like, you know what? You're never going to get that unless you stop this self-doubt and get it the fuck together and grow up and just do it anyway. What's that saying? If you're do it scared, do it anyway. I'm always so bad with these sayings. It gets mixed up in my little brain. It's be scared, do it anyway. You guys know what the fuck I'm talking about. Okay. This could be a time where a creative project that just got all started up, it comes on really strong during this last week, well into the next 3 weeks, and you may be rushing it, or it feels rushed with Neptune there and Mercury retrograding. So it may not go the way you want to at first. It will feel like you keep throwing these ideas out and you keep making the plans, but it's like sort of running at you a million miles an hour, or you're running at someone else a million miles an hour, and nothing is sticking, like quicksand in the hand. This is a time for revision and reflections. If something feels chaotic, it probably is. Humans in the mind can withstand a lot, not only the state of the world, but also 24-hour news. I'm not going to get down my conspiracies, but which I believe over these last 20 years, the development of 24-hour news is a large part to blame for the chaos in the world around us for many different reasons. Just like one of them, it's putting that energy out there and that just ends up spreading. But nevertheless, that coupled with social media growth over the last 25 years, and also just people in their lives and the emotional, physical traumas that a lot of people have experienced throughout their life usually means, though, when we become adults, we can handle a lot of chaos and crazy and often pass it off as normal in our brains. In various situations, we think chaos is normal, but this is a time to remember and reflect that if something feels chaotic, it probably is. And I don't mean like, sometimes people in our lives or in our own lives or ourselves can have chaotic moments. And that is totally normal and can be triggered by outside. But sometimes there's this toxic level of chaotic that's never ending. It's in someone's like core, and that they're not even to the level of the work they need to do to get beyond or see it. And that's kind of the chaos I'm talking about. So there is, a level that a lot of us, especially ones who grew up with trauma, enjoy chaos. My Aries placements, you know what I'm talking about. You guys naturally love chaos. It's one of the things we love about you too. So here's some questions though, some reflection questions that are going to be showing up for my cardinal placements. What levels are you creating the chaos? How are you allowing this chaos to show up in your world, show up in your life? Is the chaos causing you stress? Sometimes chaos can be fun. Is the chaos something temporary, like I said, like just someone in your life or something you're going through temporary and you know that it will shift? Or is it something where even in that situation, we have to say, when is enough enough? Like I said, people that grow up with different levels of trauma, even around communication, it's like there's a high level of chaos and what is eventually enough enough? Is this chaos something you can change? Are you addicted to the chaos? Like I said, too, that becomes very addicting. It can be fun. I know I grew up with a little bit of addicted to chaos, but more in the change, the chaos that comes with sudden change, which is very mercurial, too, that I had to learn. And I'm still in a process of just like, I'm so used to like the excitement of starting over or something new that in my 20s, my teens, I would create a lot of chaos just because I realized subconsciously I was addicted to it. So let's reflect on that, because in the end, it's not usually the best for our mind, body, and soul. I'm sorry, I still have a little cough here. This is going to be a big energy. I'm sorry, let me take a sip of my coffee. It's going to be a big energy for cardinal placements for a while. Saturn and Neptune are going to be within 3-degree conjunction for a few months. And we still have Mercury retrograde is going to have to finish its retrograde and then move in, ingress into Aries. So it almost feels like Pisces is passing the torch over to Aries, which it really is, where we're ending the zodiac with Pisces and beginning the new. So we start the new zodiac calendar at Aries season with Saturn Neptune conjunction beginning, and we have 3 other planets conjuncting them within weeks. They are passing by, picking up some of this energy that's going to begin a brand new decade. And when we begin such a brand new transit, like an outer planet like Neptune ingressing into a new sign with Saturn, not always is it then accompanied within 3 weeks by 3 other planets. So I just think these planets coming in are like, all right, we're coming in, we're picking up some fire, we're picking up some momentum, we're picking up a little bit of the energy that is going to play out over this next year or two, and more so. So, I don't know. It's a freaking fire year, though, like I said, people. So now let's talk about the Virgo Lunar Eclipse, and we're going to end this episode with that. So let's go over the dates of the eclipse axis, and I think you guys will find this interesting. So, September 18th, 2024, lunar eclipse in Pisces. March 14th, 2025, lunar eclipse in Virgo. September 7th, 2025, lunar eclipse in Pisces. September 21st, 2025, solar eclipse in Virgo. March 3rd, 2026, we just had that, lunar eclipse in Virgo. We have 2 more left till we end this eclipse series, but now we have the Leo and Aquarius beginning as well. So this is where there's a crossover. There's always a crossover at the beginning and end of eclipse season. August 28th, 2026, lunar eclipse in Pisces. February 20th, 2027, lunar eclipse in Virgo, and we end it there for now. What's the first thing that is very funny here, though, people? These are almost all lunar eclipses with only one solar eclipses. For those of you who do not know what that means, a lunar eclipse is a full moon. A solar eclipse is a new moon. And the general energy is lunar eclipses, full moons, are much more intense. Solar eclipses and new moons are much calmer. So we're coming to accumulation, and then we're starting brand new. So this is a lot of full moon energy for Pisces and Virgo. To me, it's all the mutable signs as well, Gemini and Sagittarius, but especially for Pisces and Virgo, to me, when I first realized that the first thing that came to my mind was these 2 signs, especially Pisces and Virgo right now, getting out of their own way by making them stop being so wishy-washy. All the mutable signs can be wishy-washy because they are mutable, which means they are forever changing or can't always commit or switch their energy up based on who and what is around them. They can just switch it up. They're mutable. You can take it on. You can take on who's around you. This lunar eclipse energy kept bringing challenges or busting through energy around the inability to commit or follow through, which again, my mutable signs have the most karma or problems around. There were a lot of situations where you got uncomfortable by not bringing that energy to the table. You ended up not showing up for someone, or you ended up not being able to commit, or you ended up driving yourself totally nuts by going back and forth in that wishy-washy energy. So now you're learning a little bit more around how and what to commit to and following through on change your life better. With Saturn there is why there was also a lot of energy around learning to commit. Like I said, mutable signs, you guys have a hard time doing that and staying settled. There's a lot of beautiful things in that, but there's also some important stuff there. So you're finally looking in to that and you are saying, okay, now I'm going to follow through. Now I'm going to commit. I realize it's not always the best energy. Yes, there's always something light, fun and fluffy to being mutable, but sometimes there are things that you have to be serious about. Oh my God, I'm sorry. There were a lot of responsibilities that mutable signs took on that really added to this level. This energy also heightened the wishy-washy about whatever situation that was coming up around your life, and now Saturn isn't there, so you're able to stay more grounded. I mean, now that Saturn's there, but it's like the Saturn lesson has moved on. That's where that grounded. It took you 3 years, but you're learning how to be more grounded now and staying in that. These last 2 eclipses are going to be much more grounded and be around the new part of your life that you have created around these eclipses that haven't, it hasn't showed up before, because leading up to it was like the chaos of change and the shifts. This is sort of the last harder eclipse. Not last harder eclipse, but a last one bringing big shifts. The next 2, you will be integrated into the new chapter, you could say. The new chapter will go on from there. This eclipse energy began when we started Pisces season again this, couple weeks ago. So my Virgo Gemini placements have been having it a little rougher with Mercury retrograding during these eclipses, where I feel like, because y'all have been having to live in your feelings, which, Gemini and Virgos don't do very well. And they like to make mental sense of their feelings. It wasn't easy, but it also made you more confused, tired, sad, wanting to escape reality, maybe more prone to, wanting to get high or just escape your mind in the ways that Mercury's like to do. So where I feel like my Pisces Sag, y'all are getting it together a little bit more with this eclipse season. Finally, you're getting your mind out of the mental hole that you often find yourself in, or you guys can get lost in a mental space. You literally enter Jupiter's, spiritual realm, and then you're really lost there. And it takes a while to come back to Earth. But I feel like now you guys are more grounded with this season, with this Mercury retrograde. You're going back to past ideas that really made you more grounded and more earthly, and you're able to now move forward with your new light and I mean your new mental light and your new mental understanding, and move forward in your life with sort of that mental understanding that you've needed to keep yourself here a little bit. Sometimes, like I said, you all get lost, which is a beautiful thing. You guys can connect to otherworldly things and energy so easy. But sometimes you need your oppositions, your mirrors, Virgo and Gemini, to pull you back down and say, all right, that's actually see what your mind really means. That's bring your mind back to this reality, to this moment right now. And this is happening for you guys. Eclipse energy is definitely intense energy the day of, the week of, but it's important to remember that things directly related to the eclipse shifts also happen about up to 3 weeks after the eclipse. So mutable placements, look to your life. And those are the little puzzles as each chapter of the eclipse axis plays out. Look to your life and see where this played out and what planets are there. This happened in my 1st to 7th house. So my house of self in relation to the house of the others that are directly closest to me. Pay attention to who, what, where shows up or plays out in your life over time. Even though there are still 2 more lunar eclipses left, I feel like this is going to feel like the last life-shifting ones. The next 2 will be more like getting acquainted in the next chapter. This is the last ending. To the next ones will be around beginning. Like I said, this is the last ending. We're ending. We're closing up cycles. We're finishing things out. This is the last one that's bringing endings. The next 2 will be more around beginnings and in that new chapter. So, that was a long episode. This is the longest episode I have done in a while. Also, I have one more confession. I've been saying and bragging, I don't use ChatGPT, the chatty. I don't. The whole thing freaks me out. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't want it to know anything more about me. I don't use it. I think it's going to really hurt Americans, though we always survive and we always adapt. But it's not going to be pretty. I don't want to get into all of that, but it's not going to be pretty. So nevertheless, I use Podbean as my hosting site for my podcast. And if you've noticed, my little information box about my episodes have all of a sudden gotten really good. That was one of my least favorite things to do. I'm a talker, right? I'm not a writer. I can show up and talk. I hate writing things out. I don't have time for that in my brain. I didn't even do it in school. So it was always like poorly wrote or not. And so my Podbean was like, would you like us to basically subscribe your whole, not subscribe, or so what's the word I'm looking for? You know, it listened to my whole podcast and then came up with the whole writing and a title. And I was like, all right, I'll try it out. And then the first time I did it, I was like, damn, that's good. Damn, that's good. And that makes it so much easier. Transcribe, that's the word, transcribe my whole thing. And then it wrote up my little about the episode. I'm like, ooh, that sounds good. So, okay, that's my confession. If you've wondered, damn, Colleen got good already, my Podbean hosting site wrote that for me after listening to my podcast. So that is going to be the one and only thing I do that is related to AI. I say that now, but at least the only thing. I did also think about taking this road trip this summer because the salon I work at closes for 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh, I guess maybe my kid's father uses it. So I'm like, maybe I'll have him write me up a road trip. AI, the chatty, write me up a little road trip. But other than that, I'm not doing it. All right, my voice is saying get off. I love you all. Happy Eclipse series. I'll be back hopefully next week with another. But like I said, my life's a little unpredictable right now with having to do a lot of stuff for my mom's life. Sell her condo suddenly. All this shit's happening. So I will try to be back. But if I'm not, no, I love you anyway. I love you all. Goodbye.